Hello and welcome to this week's Coffee, Kegs, and Kriegsspiel. I am here today with DesertFox, and we're going to be covering the Battle of Cannae. DesertFox and I go way back. We both started the International Kriegsspiel Society about the same time, and I think I feel pretty comfortable saying nobody has played more games than he has. And I think the person that's played second as many as me, we've both played a lot of games together. Desert Fox is often my arch nemesis as we compete against each other on opposing sides. Although we have been on the same side and even working together as two ICs on occasion. So that rivalry has turned into a friendship. But he recently completed a game which was the Battle of Cannae. At the time, we didn't know that. We're going to get into that. I actually was the general on one side and faced off against the Romans. And so we're just going to go over the battle, what happened, and all of that good stuff. So, Desert Fox, thank you for being here with us.
Glad to be here.
So, tell me first of all, why did you run this game? What made you want to run the battle, and what made you decide to disguise it as a different battle?
Well, what I wanted to do was there's always a talk of, how you can't replicate certain historical battles because there's, some trick or something that happened. And I wanted to see, if that's really the case. And what better battle to do it than Cannae, which is one of the most famous ancient battles in general, and was done mainly because of how tricky Hannibal was. At the same time, I wanted to do the plain, straight up stand up battle with the ancient pieces, and Cannae seemed like a very good option, mainly because it was on a flat field with no terrain features, clearly defined boundaries on each side, a well known order of battles for the two sides, and there were also some interesting command and control issues with the Romans having two separate commanders switching command every other day, and you have the that Kriegsspiel idea of a larger but less uh, veteran army versus a smaller, more experienced army. There were a variety of issues I wanted to explore with this battle.
Interesting. And what did you do in terms of game design? What did you do to simulate the various, I guess, command and control issues, as well as like the experience of the commanders themselves? How did you simulate that with the battle?
The first thing is I wanted to get commanders that were familiar with the time period and that would act or try to at least try to get commanders that would act similar to their historical counterparts. So I had a survey to pick the commanders for both sides. Based on the answers, that's why I chose you, James. You were almost spot on exactly what I was looking for from a Hannibal. And then for the Romans, I picked the two commanders that represented the Roman tactics the best. And then I picked one that was more aggressive and then one that was more defensive and, idea. So that was the first step. Second step was picking subordinates. Since Hannibal, had a very strong subordinate corps, and these were all generals that fought with him, and he knew personally. I allowed James to pick who he wanted as his subordinates. Of course, the Romans, this was a army that was formed really fast by the Senate, where the commanders in chief had no input on who they wanted as their subordinates. So the Roman sub commanders were um, the CICs did not have any input into who their subordinates were.
And I guess as we talk about the battle, we'll see how that became a factor in how both sides did. Um, why don't you go ahead and talk through the deployment of the two sides and their strategies and thinking, what you saw from an umpire perspective?
Yeah, so first, let me switch over to the historical Cannae so you can see some
Sure.
differences. So here you can see the historical Cannae deployment. You have the Romans on the top and the Carthaginian forces on the bottom. You can see that both sides are a lot more compact than what we'll see, and there's actually space on either side for the cavalry, which are on the flanks to maneuver. You also see the Carthaginians have the very strong hidden wing in reserve, and the Romans are in actually close formation and not the uh, triplets axes that they're known for.
Hmm.
Going over to the actual battle, here the Romans actually deployed in triple axes, and it's a lot more spread out. So they're actually covering most of the. Sorry about that. They are covering most of the battlefield. They also deploy their cavalry only on one wing, with the other wing anchored on the river, and then they have reserve uh, two legions, and actually a very good location. But as we will see, they did not stay there, and this actually contributed to the problems the Romans faced. Meanwhile, James deployed a very weird formation. He had the Macedonian phalanx, the strongest unit on your right flank, anchored on the hill. That's a very good. The hill protecting your flank is a very good idea. Two groups of reserves and most of the rest of phalanx in an angle. Then the cavalry in the middle of the lines between the heavy infantry on the right side and the Gaul allies on the left side.
Yeah. Very interesting. Well, we of course we didn't know we were Carthage, so we went through several different. I think we had five different deployment strategies, but we figured the Romans would probably anchor on the river and put the cavalry on the right, and so we thought we'd throw them off by putting the strongest units on the right, anchored on the cliff, and then leaving the center a bit more vulnerable, and the center left vulnerable, and trying to draw them in there. So
It was interesting during the planning process. Both you and the Romans did suggest the historical Cannae plan multiple times. I was just hoping you guys would pick it, but neither side did.
yeah. All right. Well, why don't you? So that's the deployment. Why don't you fast forward a little bit and I guess just describe how the battle went. You know, major events, good and bad things that happened on both sides, and kind of just walk us through the battle.
I don't have all the turns saved, but I do have enough, so it should work. So just quick look at the historical. Both sides are advancing. Skirmishers are up front. Nothing too fancy historically.
Hmm.
Here you can see James sent the light and medium cavalry over to the right flank. You can see some skirmishers moving forward. They're trying to see some engagement here on the far right. Um, the Gauls are trying to bait the Romans into advancing. However, most of the Romans are just sitting in place. There's some minor reorganizations happening. And the biggest thing, the Romans sent their reserve over all the way to the flank.
Hmm.
They are supposed to follow the cavalry on an attack. However, the hill is right here, and that's going to cause them a lot of issues. Also takes the reserve away from what will be one of the decisive points in the battle.
Did you make this map, by the way, or where did this map come from?
Puxus Adolphus, who made my Jerusalem map, also made this
Oh,
one.
okay. Yeah, it's a good looking map.
And There's a lot of ancient battles that can actually be done using this map.
Yeah.
So that was turn three. We're now jumping to turn seven. So at historical Cannae, you see the skirmishers have done their battle. The main forces are starting to run into each other. The cavalry is fighting on each team. Nothing too exciting yet. Here you can see that we're fighting over about twice as much area.
Hmm. Still mostly a skirmish fight at that point. At this point.
Yeah. So on the right side, you can see the Numidians are engaging the Roman cavalry. Um, just a skirmish, but that has basically trapped the infantry reserves behind their cavalry.
Mm.
The legion on the right, on the left of the cavalry, um, freaks out, believes the peltasts are phalanxes, and sends some of their heavy infantry to engage the peltasts, which starts breaking up the formation, and that's going to prove crucial in a little bit.
Oh, they thought the Peltasts were the phalanx.
Yeah, there were some that the Roman commander was inexperienced,
Oh, interesting.
which was actually a contributing factor at Cannae. Here on the center, just more skirmishing between the Velites and the Peltas. Uh, but here you can see the Romans have shifted from the triplet axis to
Hmm.
a straight line in close formation, which leaves very little reserve in the backside. And you can see the Velites are fleeing, and then there's nobody to stop them. Uh, Basically, the Roman force loses their entire Velites during the course of the battle, and most of these are still battle effective. They just fled all the way back to their camp.
Mm. That's probably one of the big Roman blunders was not having a reserve to catch all the routed units.
Yeah, when they eventually do it, it's too late. Here on the left flank, you can see the Gauls are advancing. The Romans in this side are advancing as well. They are maintaining the triplet axis, and you can the Romans on this side of the battlefield actually do use proper Roman tactics, and it does help them. And you can see that the reserves are still in place at this time.
Yeah. Ooh, by turn 12, Cannae's got it, or Hannibal's got his trap already.
Yeah, by turn 12, you can see the trap, infantry on both sides. The Romans very compact in the center, basically taking them out of the fight. The cavalry has won their engagement and have come back in the rear, and it's over. The rest of the battle is, just a massacre of the Romans. Here we can see one of the big Roman blunders. They tried to flank on the right-hand side via the hill, and this is advancing up down the side of a hill. This is not going to work, so you have disruption on their heavy infantry and on their cavalry. So the um, Carthaginian commander on this side has seen the disruption caused on the Roman legion to his front, So he orders an attack by the phalanx and catches the Romans disorganized, and he uses his archer to harass the Roman cavalry which is trapped
Hmm.
up on the hill. We have the Roman reserves and the Roman cavalry just not doing anything and stuck out here on the side of the hill. In this area, the Allied commander who's commanding these Gaul heavy infantry units notices that there's a hole between the Macedonian phalanx and the Greek phalanx, and he takes the initiative to move into the hole, which is a very a very good decision as the Roman legion here sees that the flank of the phalanx is open and starts advancing to hit that flank.
Yeah.
So
I
by Gauls moving in, they cover up that
I was mad
flank.
when I first heard about it because he was supposed to be the reserve, but now since we won, it's I forgive him. But it forced me to send more of my reserves over there. In the end, it all worked out. But when I first heard, I was so mad because he was supposed to hold back and wait, and then I get a dispatch that he decided to attack all in, and I'm like, oh, okay, good. But
And no, the initiative between these two commanders basically wins the battle.
yep,
They saw they saw the weakness and they exploited it.
they did good.
You see the Romans here are advancing. The Greeks are still holding formation. There's some skirmishing still going on in this area. Your reserves and your heavy cavalry are here. There's an interesting point. The slingers basically spent the entire battle hitting this junction. We have two Roman legions here in a junction, and the Romans basically sat there and took it without even trying to do anything most of the game. Of course, they couldn't do much because all their relatives had fled by this point in time.
Yeah, those slingers were my MVPs right there. They did a lot of work.
Yeah, they had a free shot the whole game. On the left-hand side, you can see the Gauls have spread out to try to contain three entire legions. Um, the reserve legion is moving into this gap between a legion here and a legion here. And if the Romans had pushed hard, they could have easily overwhelmed the Gauls. But they proved tentative. They do attack, but they don't really push it until later in the battle. And it gives the Gauls time to survive and
Yeah.
withdraw.
And my original plan was for the Gauls just to appear weak and just keep withdrawing as the Romans attacked. I wanted to split the Romans in half and then attack up their center, but basically the Romans didn't move on the left, so I had the Gauls make an attack and then withdraw to kind of draw them forward. I think that my Gaul commander, I think overcommitted on the attack more than I would have liked, but he did a good job handling it because he fought three legions with what was my weakest force. But it's just funny that we ended up having to attack them um, just to get them to do something. And yeah, all right, continue.
Yeah, yeah. And also, you did want a gap. There is a gap right here,
Yep.
but it's hard to see and it's pretty small.
So this is turn 16 now.
I believe it's
Oh,
14.
14. Okay.
So on the right side, the Romans finally decide to withdraw from the hill. They're still a very powerful force. You have one legion and all the cavalry basically in full health. They're just sitting here on the right side. Right next to them, the Macedonian phalanx has basically scattered. the Roman legion to the front. They're mopping it up at this point. Mhm.
How
Just
did you?
for
I'm curious. The
okay.
disruption that the units have, the purple marker. How did that factor into the rules and like the combat? How'd you take that into account?
It depended. So terrain disruption, basically, give them a temporary drop in combat until they were uh, reorganized again.
Okay,
These units here, those are broken and routed units. So they would have a step drop during combat if
okay,
once they rejoin. So these peltas, those are units that have broken and then reorganized. So they have the step down marker.
got it.
The numbers are just based on how much health the unit has before it breaks, so how much is getting disrupted throughout the fighting. If they sat in place, they would regain these numbers. So this got a 7 because the Macedonian phalanx could take up to 10 hit points before they routed. So yeah, you see the Legion trying to make a last stand. The Gaul heavy infantry hitting the junction between these two legions and breaking this side. This legion is holding in place, and the Greeks are also holding in place for now. So a lot of very passive commanders on both sides. Interestingly,
Yeah. Well, in my initial strategy was I wanted the Romans to come to me. We had chosen the aggressive commander, and I had made the salient on the right and a plan to kind of draw them in, create gaps, and exploit them. It ended up not working that way, but that's kind of why we were a little bit slow to start because my original goal was to not attack at all, just let them come to us, and so we were slow. Yeah, we were slower for that reason.
yeah. So you hear the Romans and the Gauls are fighting. Nothing too exciting. The Roman commander here did actually a very good job of swapping his units. When the front rank got tired, would move him to the back and bring in fresh troops. It did slow him down a little bit and gave the Gauls time to make a withdrawal. Yeah, you can see there is a gap starting
Hmm.
to form right here.
That's maybe a good time to talk about your courier structure, which is a little unique to most Kriegsspiel games. Who were the couriers in the game and how'd that work?
Yeah, so in ancient times, there's actually a very good example in Battle of Gaugamela in the movie Alexander, where the Macedonian commander on the left-hand side sent his son as a courier to Alexander to tell him, that they were being hard pressed and they needed reinforcements.
Hmm.
So I thought let's do that in actual games, and instead of sending a written dispatch, which in ancient times would not be the case, have an actual player carry the dispatch, a verbal dispatch from one side to another. Uh, there were a couple players that did copy this word for word, but I didn't give them any place to write it down, so they would have to write it down on their own if
Mm.
they wanted to do that. Yeah, it was just to move them from one location to another. Also, they could move about half the map. So if you had somebody here, the one that's actually somebody here, it would only move them about halfway, meet whoever was here, and then have them continue on. And we had a case where they were looking for the commander of the phalanxes here, who was trapped because there was Roman cavalry. So the courier could only get halfway and talk to the commanders on
Hmm.
this side of the whole mess in this area.
And we had
Right.
some instances, I think on both sides, but instances where one message was given to the courier, and by the time it got to me, for example, it was a completely different message. Uh, like there's one guy that's, I don't know, basically turned it from, we're doing okay to, they're gonna die. Like they need, you got to send reinforcements.
And I consider that not a bug, but a actual plus. Just throw in some extra fog of war in there.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it made it fun. But then you couldn't trust 100% what your couriers were telling you because some of them were saying it from memory, and yeah, it made it interesting.
Oh, but I did let you have first pick of the courier, so you had a little more reliable set of couriers than the Romans.
Right? Yeah, I did. So what's
The Romans were not happy about it, so I told them blame the Senate.
so what's happened at this point in the battle?
So the Romans on the right side have reformed. They're facing the Numidian cavalry. They could easily push through here, but they have orders to sit, and they don't really want to move through the hill, so they're just sitting in place.
Hmm.
The Macedonian phalanx are pretty beat up, but they have absolutely destroyed the Roman legion to the front. The Romans have managed to reform a line and are holding the Gaul heavy infantry in place, but the Gauls have more forces. They're in better shape. The Romans have no reserves behind them at all.
Hmm.
Greeks are actually forming up into close order. They're about to attack the Romans to the front. You have sent your reinforcements to the flank, which is going to prove crucial. Although I do believe it would have been better to send the cavalry and leave the
Yeah,
infantry.
it would have.
And again, the Romans here have reformed. They moved one of the three legions facing the Gulf, and now they closed this gap. They're facing your cavalry and your slingers. However, they're just holding in place. The legions here are reforming as they're advancing as the Gauls start falling back. But so the Gauls have a little better odds on that. They're only facing two legions, but
Hmm.
they're still outnumbered.
Big turn.
We're actually missing some of the intermediate turns. Very interesting, but we can go over it. So out here, we still have a staring contest between a legion, full strength legion, and basically four meeting cavalry. The majority of the Roman cavalry actually sees a gap forming in the Macedonian phalanx and launches a major charge, which would have succeeded, except your reinforcements have arrived at just the right time and have now trapped most of the Roman cavalry in the middle. The Roman cavalry commander is actually dueling your phalanx. No, no, your reinforcements commander here, and actually severely wounds him at this point.
Yep.
The phalanx commander is actually ordering his phalanxes to form squares. You have a square trying to form here and one forming here. This actually happened at the Battle of Magnesia, where the phalanxes formed squares in the middle of the battle and started retreating. However, they had elephants in the middle, and that broke up the squares.
Interesting. It's well-timed reinforcements, huh?
They were right on time. Uh, on the rest, the Gaul heavy infantry has won their battle. They crushed the Romans, but the Romans have been able to reform a secondary line to the rear. The Greek phalanxes have attacked, and because the Roman line was so weak, have also shattered it. You can see the sitting Romans here. There's a one of the Roman CICs is here and one is here. So now they can see the full extent of the
Mm.
battle.
Yeah, an interesting aspect is the two Roman leaders kind of split the battle in half, and so they ended up. It seemed like they were very concentrated on their wings, which left and and probably overly so, such that their center was weakened and just wasn't as paid attention to. Would you say that?
So what actually happened is this, this Roman consul, who was the overall CIC, was over here on this side when this legion broke.
Hmm.
So both of them were on the wrong side of the battlefield when the critical action happened. And it wasn't until this hole was already fully in place that he actually realized it.
Interesting. Yeah, and then I had spent almost basically the whole battle in the middle because I felt like I needed to watch that part. So I really had to rely on my couriers to communicate, what was going on over there. So it was interesting. And the screenshots were quite small, which I liked. It was frustrating and annoying as always, but I enjoyed it because you could see so little of the battlefield that you really, um, yeah, I think it was realistic in that way that you just get a small picture and you got to take in bits of pieces of information from everyone to put the whole picture together. It was fun.
Especially with how spread out everyone was.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Cannae, you can see in the actual battle it was half the size. So here you have also sent your cavalry to exploit the gap.
Hmm.
They're moving through the line. Uh, the rear of the cavalry actually gets delayed as there's leading Greek phalanxes had just run through the middle of them.
Yeah, Cookie spent the whole battle complaining that I was holding him in reserve, the last reserve, really. Uh, and finally, he got his chance to go and fight, which he did get in there. So I'm glad for that.
Yeah, so here the Romans have decided to hit the Greek phalanxes flank, so you use some of your reserve cavalry to tie them up. This legion finally starts advancing because they got tired of their slingers, but the slingers are faster, so they can withdraw.
Yep.
On this side, the battle continues. The Romans uh, keep swapping lines, which makes for a slower but more effective advance. Eventually, both sides get tired on here, and you have turns where they're like doing no damage to each other.
Yeah. And at this point, I mean, it's pretty. We've done a lot of damage against the Romans on the Carthaginian side, but for me, I knew the right was doing well, but I was starting to get reports of over exaggerated reports of how it was going poorly, and then in the center I had almost nothing, and I just committed my last reserves, and so I was even at this point I was feeling pretty nervous about the whole battle. I wasn't sure if I was winning or not.
Yeah, the Romans are in really good shape right here,
Hmm.
which is like just, there's some Easter eggs if you can figure it out.
This is the final state here.
Almost.
Um,
There's a couple more turns. Now on the right side, the legion finally starts moving, but it's too late. The trap is fully closed. The Roman cavalry is captured almost entirely. These are the elites of the Roman society. That's a really good coup for Hannibal. Um, Cookie's cavalry has arrived. They're mopping up survivors over here, finishing off, and they capture the Roman PAC. He tries to go down fighting, but the dice does not favor him, and he gets captured.
That was Decimus, right?
Um,
Or McPanzer?
definitely.
Oh, okay.
On this side, the Gaul heavy infantry advances again and destroys the Roman uh, reserve line that they formed, together with some help uh, from the Greek phalanx, which is just steamrolling through the Roman line. This is where the lack of reserves in this area really
Hmm.
hurt the Romans.
Yeah, if they'd had that legion over there instead, it would have been a different story.
Yeah, because this legion was supposed to be right here, right behind the one that was shattered by the phalanx. If they're here, they advance on the tired phalanxes, they would have
Yeah.
crushed them. You can see there's reserves hanging out in the back.
Yep.
Here, the Roman legion is trying to fight off your cavalry. It's using melee, nothing too interesting. Slingers keep just annoying the Romans to no extent. The Gauls are now starting to be in pretty bad shape. They, they're trying to get flanked, and not all of them are able to pull back as far as they can. So you can see the Romans still have reserves because they've been swapping their lines. So the Gauls are in really bad shape, but the Romans are just
Yeah.
non-existent basically. Interesting. That's the same thing that happened at Cannae. The Gauls that were in the center were really hard pushed, while the rest of the army basically won the battle. So this should be the final stage.
Hmm.
On this flank, Marcos is commanding this legion here. He's basically full strength, but now trapped against the hill. With the cavalry, the phalanx, and the reserve all surrounding him.
Hmm.
And the and in the end, he tries to flee over. So this is the village of Cannae, right here.
Hmm.
Tries to flee over the hill. He has four dice rolls, so only very few of his men manage to make it out. Uh, so most of these Romans get captured together with the cavalry. The Gauls and the Greeks just finish off the Romans here. Most of these Romans will flee back to their camp. There's a couple Roman commanders that get captured or killed in this area. This three. Their cavalry continues their battle. These Romans will flee back to their camp.
Hmm.
Consul Silva shows up on this side. They are pushing the Gauls really hard. So this group of Romans will end up just continuing their attack, pushing through the Gauls, and then escaping the battlefield in this direction.
Hmm.
The Roman camp is over on this on this corner. So this is the loss counter. These are Roman commanders until like he's killed. Units have been like completely destroyed. Most of these units with the purple markers are
Hmm.
actually still fighting shape. They just fled all the way back to the camp.
Yeah.
All these are relative.
So not quite as impressive a victory as Hannibal historically, but still pretty darn close.
Yeah, it's actually very similar to Gargamella, stretching the lines and then hitting the weak point while the this flank is being very
Yeah.
heavily pushed. So overall, the Romans are split into three groups. There's a few survivors of Marco's here, um, almost two full legions under Consul Silva fled south, and all the Romans that fled back to the camps, which are still basically combat effective without half the Roman army, but it's mostly relatives and Hastati, which are they're the poor quality units.
Hmm.
Uh, in the end, what really is going to hurt the Romans is that their cavalry, which is all the nobility and mostly triarii, so they're veterans, get captured or killed. It's still a very impressive victory. Might even have be more effective in getting mm, handling his peace deal since he's captured so many senators
Hmm.
than historical. But in terms of numbers, it's a lot less bloody overall.
Yeah. So what would you to wrap up? What would you any takeaways as an umpire? Anything you do differently or learnings that you had?
Yeah. The way I moved the two ICs around was not the best way, and I caused more work for me. I have a better way of doing it in the future. Uh, the two IC system itself, I think, works really well, and I would use it again for any ancient battle I run.
Hmm.
I did like the additional fog of war and player involvement that it gave. I did also allow two ICs to take command of units for a period of time, and if the commanders order their two ICs
Hmm.
to do so, I would give them a slightly bigger screenshot so they can see both theirs and the two IC area. Um, I really like how the system works. I think it felt very true to ancient warfare. Definitely be using it again. There will be an ancient battle coming very soon, next few weeks. I'm not the lead umpire for that one, but I am helping.
Oh, nice, exciting. We need more ancient battles, right?
Absolutely.
Well, thank you for taking the time to go over the
Uh,
game. Oh,
I can go a couple more points.
oh sure.
I think that yeah, I think the battle really shows the need and use of reserves. The Romans got the reserves tangled up and led to their center basically collapsing entirely. Meanwhile, you were able to send your reserves to just the right time at the right place. It really shows that value, and I think it also shows how the quality of command and control really dictates the battle. Where you had a lot better trust and you knew your commanders better, and they had a better understanding of the plan because I did give you more time to plan it.
Hmm.
While the Romans, they were working with players that were they might not be as comfortable with, and I think it did show overall, which historically was the case for ancient battles where command and control was a key contributing factor. And at Cannae, you had
Hmm.
a veteran Carthaginian army against basically a scratch Roman force. I think in that sense, um, Battle did a good job of showing it. And to answer my original question, can you do Cannae? I believe you can. Can you get Cannae to come out exactly as it did historically? Maybe not so.
Hmm. True. Well, thank you for taking the time to go over your game, and thank you for hosting it. It was very fun to play in, and look forward to all your future games as a umpire, especially the ancient ones. So appreciate your time. Thank you.
And thank you. I had fun. All the players were great, and it was a really fun game to run. Only 25 turns. It was ran really fast.
Yeah. All right, and thanks to anyone who stuck it out watching the Coffee Kegs and Kriegsspiel episode. Hope you enjoyed it.